we are going to have a bit of a debate. I hope. We've been agreeing too much lately, and frankly, it's despicable.
Despicable.
It's inconceivable. Over the past little while, there have been some people on social media, because we always like to listen to them.
Yeah, because it's a glimpse into reality.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it's a
like Dave Chappelle said.
bias.
Like Dave Chappelle said, Twitter is not a real place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sampling bias.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
My favorite thing is like somebody puts up a poll and says, do you like to respond to polls? And yes is like 98% to no is like 2%. And that's the perfect example of sampling bias.
Right.
Because guess who responded, right? Anyways, Twitter, the not real place, has been talking about, is Mathews now better than Connor McDavid? So my question to you is, do you think this is actually the case or even close?
I think it's close. Yeah, I do think it's close.
Yeah.
I'll probably talk more eye test. You can talk more under the hood numbers.
I was thinking we'd do that in reverse for a change.
Okay, I'll do the under the hood numbers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, sure. Well, they're as we discussed, they're not quite as indicative of what people might think as what people might think.
Doesn't support the narrative.
Yeah, it doesn't really support the narrative.
Yeah.
I think it's really close. I mean, Auston Mathews is one of the best goal scorers on the planet.
Yep.
Auston Mathews, I think that we're going to talk about this. There's a perception that his defensive game is better.
Yep.
And I think part of the reason for that is he's like
a big fella.
He's a big guy, and he's Mark Stone-like in his ability to strip pucks.
Right.
And that really breaks up a lot of plays and creates a lot of offense. Yeah. So there's that. He's 10 points behind him in the scoring race, behind McDavid.
Yeah.
They're actually a lot. I think people who think that Auston Mathews is better might be surprised, and people who think that it's not even a debate might be surprised. I think they're a lot closer. I think they're a lot closer than people think.
Yeah.
And to me, not to bail here, but I mean, we don't know yet because neither of them has won anything. A damn thing.
Yeah.
Neither of them has won anything. Neither of them has, other than individual accolades, neither of these guys has accomplished anything in the NHL.
Correct.
Anything.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think we have to see those guys on a big stage being the guy, because Mathews is dried up. He dried up in the playoffs.
Big time.
And so to me,
Bill Deneau just said no.
Right? No. I'm going to be eating pizza after this
English
game.
Also means no.
Yeah. But both of these guys, I think, have a lot to prove.
Yeah.
In the playoffs. And I think that's where we are going to see the demarcation, right? Because, there was always the Sid Ovi, right? Sid versus Ovi.
Yeah.
For the longest time, Sid was kicking Ovi's ass in the playoffs.
Sid went to Ovi's house, but couldn't get something to drink because there were no cups.
Nice. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
These jokes were running rampant.
Yeah. And for a while, Crosby was killing him on the team accolades, and then Ovechkin went out and won a cup. But
he's still too shy of Crosby.
But. And he's only won one. I'd like to see him win a couple more before he's obviously the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game, without question.
Correct. Yeah.
But there is that, right? So I think that once one or both of these guys starts to do something in the playoffs and starts to be a driver of team success in the playoffs, not just a guy who's there, but a guy who drives his team, who pulls up his team, who says, get on my back, let's go. We're going, we're winning this series and I'm going to win it for you. Until they start doing that, I think the jury's pretty much out still.
Yeah.
But it's close. I think it's, like I said, I think it's a lot closer than people care to admit. But I want to see what these guys can do in the playoffs.
Well, I think like in our first episode, I even mentioned that I think that McDavid Matthews is the second best player in the world, and I don't think that McKinnon is necessarily part of that conversation.
Right.
And I felt like that was kind of my hot take alert. One follow-up question for you before I kind of dive into these numbers a little bit. Like, what do you think is driving this narrative now as opposed to any other time? Because there's always been the people that have said that Matthews is better. But why do you think that this has really picked up traction now?
Well, I think it's because people are now talking about Auston Mathews as a Selke Trophy candidate. You know, whether that's merited or not.
Yeah.
That seems to be the perception that he is now, rounded his game out.
Yeah.
To be, a guy who's really, really reliable defensively, not just really reliable defensively. The perception is that he is, one of the elite defensive players in the league.
Right.
So if you've got the best shot in the league, you're one of the best scorers and you can defend.
Yeah.
That's the perfect player.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I mentioned that about Toffoli last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I'll say is, before I jump into this a more, is that what happens, I find a lot, especially on Twitter, is that people jump into what's called microstats. So a takeaway is a microstat in the sense that it just deals with this tiny part of the game.
Yep.
You can take and hit is sort of a microstat even, right?
I'm not big on hits because big deal.
Right,
you hit
exactly.
A lot. Like, so what? That just means you don't have the puck.
I remember,
and you're hitting guys, and giveaways to me is the big one. That's a big misnomer.
Yeah.
Like look at the top 20 guys in giveaways.
Yeah.
And you're looking at probably the top 20 guys in the league.
Right. Yeah.
Because they handle the puck all the time.
Yeah.
They're always handling the puck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Eric Carlson's best years as a defenseman.
He led the league in giveaways. I want the guy who leads the league in giveaways.
Yeah. So it's funny because I saw Habs Twitter last year going crazy about zone exits. There was somebody that was hand tracking zone exits. He was doing a great job, but they were going, well, this is the best defenseman because he's got the best zone exits or successful zone exits. But the trouble with when you look at a microstat is that it doesn't tell you how long the guy spent in his zone before he managed to exit it.
Yeah.
So looking at a larger stat like Corsi, which is showing where the actual play is going, to me is more useful than looking at something like takeaways, which, like what you're saying, is really fueling, I think, a lot of this Auston Mathews debate. Talent-wise, there's no two ways about it. Connor McDavid is the more talented player. He's just explosive. He's athletic. He's just incredible. You just watch him, and he's just a freak. Not to take anything away from Matthews. I mean, let's be honest. They're playing the NHL. They're an athletic freak to start off with, right?
Yeah.
We shouldn't take anything away from Phil Kessel in this regard, right? But Matthews has 14 defensive zone faceoffs per 60 at 5 versus 5. McDavid, has 14. Matthews has 16. So Matthews, slight edge, but neither of them are really leaned on defensively from their team. McDavid at 5 versus 5 has 2.4 expected goals against per 60. Matthews has 2. So that's good, right? Expected goals against is important. McDavid has 2.25 actual goals against per 60s. Matthews has 2.73.
Okay.
So Matthews is actually letting goals into his net at a higher rate than McDavid is at 5 versus 5. And when you consider that Jack Campbell for much of the year was a Vezina candidate
for the first half.
Yeah, but that's much of the year at this point for the first 25, 30 games, right?
20.
Okay.
I'm going 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't looked it up, but my point is
20 starts for him. I mean, not
comparative
20 games,
to McDavid's goaltending that he's received.
Right.
All things being equal, you just look at those two goalies, you say who's supposed to be letting in goals at a higher rate?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And for no fault of their own. So, and all of this is at 5 versus 5. Now, here's what's interesting. The narrative around McDavid has been that he scores all his goals in the power play, puts up all his points in the power play, and is not a good 5 versus 5 contributor. Matthews is a good 5 versus 5 contributor. However, McDavid at 5 versus 5 has 2.6 points per 60. Matthews has 2.4. Meaning McDavid is putting up more points at 5 versus 5, scoring at a higher rate than McDavid is scoring at a higher rate than Matthews is.
Right.
So I keep on hearing the same arguments that I'm sure you're hearing. Matthews has good under the hood numbers. the thing that bothers me as kind of a guy that likes to look at those under the hood numbers is tell me what you're looking at.
Right.
Because I don't see it.
Okay.
Now I could be wrong because
yeah.
I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I ain't the sharpest tool in the bulb. Right. but at the same time, if I am wrong, explain it to me.
Right.
Explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a chance of getting it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I think Matthews is close, like you said, a lot closer to McDavid than the people that think McDavid is the best in the world will think. But I think that he's not as close as the people who think that Matthews should be the number one.
Right.
Think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I completely agree with you, and
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
it turns my stomach.
Why does it turn your stomach?
Just because nobody's going to care to watch this show if it's just two guys going, yes, I also agree.
Oh, okay.
We need ratings, Ken. We need ratings.
We need eyeballs.
We need
or
eyeballs.
ears at least.
Subscribe to the Substack, kencampbell.substack.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple. We're on YouTube. If you see us on YouTube, hello. Leave a comment. Leave a review. These are all things that get us ratings. And then maybe we'll argue a lot more. That's the incentive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Now
Okay.
we're going to have to pick some real
Well,
fights.
let's argue about something then. Let's try and think of something to argue about. Anyways.
Well, the next
on.
one's probably not going to be much of an argument either, but because